Hey, this is Yang Nguyen, and you're listening to the Immi Wealth Builder podcast, where we celebrate incredible immigrant success stories, share proven strategies, and give you actionable steps to build your wealth, freedom, and a lasting legacy. Let's go get it. If you think building an empire means you have to go at it alone, this episode will change your mind. Too many couples struggle to balance love and business. But what if your partner can actually be your biggest asset? So today, Christina and Attila Kovacs, a powerhouse duo who turned real estate, tech, and trust into a full-blown entrepreneur ecosystem, from flipping millions in residential properties to owning RV parks, multiple apartment buildings, and scaling businesses across Florida while being as each other biggest backup dancers. So I'm super excited for you to hear their story. So with that, Christina and Attila, take it away. Tell us a little bit more about how you came to the US and what you were starting to work on before you move on to being a full-blown business owner.
I was 14 years old when my parents decided to move to US and take me here with them. And it was for financial reasons, to make a better life, as most immigrants do, I believe. I learned quickly by myself early on that I did not like to be paid by the hour. I didn't feel it was fair. If you're working harder than the next person right next to you, you should get paid more. I had multiple jobs, but eventually I tried starting my own company at 19 years old.
Wow.
It didn't go very far, but you got to try. So I went back to the corporate world, and that's where I met Christina. And her and I ended up moving to San Diego together. And I think it was right at that moment when we decided that we don't want to go back to corporate and start our own thing.
Wow, I love that you shared that, Attila. I want to give out a couple of good pointers you just brought up. I always advise people that if you are trading your time for money, you should not have that ceiling on how much your time is worth or how much income you can make, right? So I love that you brought up that point, because if your income is determined by another person, regardless of how hard you work, it will limit on how much you can build wealth. Love that you took action to build your first business at 19 and you never fail, right? You learned the lesson to then take it with you to now be a successful business owner. So that's amazing that you took that action. Tell me a little bit more about the corporate world that you both were in that you met.
So it was a subprime mortgage company. I actually quit college to do that job. I saw an ad in the newspaper that I could make $100,000 just by doing some sales. And I was always good at sales. Same with him. I didn't want to be capped by hourly wages in the past. So I always liked commission type jobs. Even my first job when I was in 7th grade was transplanting seeds. And I got paid by the pallet of how many seeds I transplanted in a greenhouse nursery. So
interesting.
It's just like, I don't know, the challenge, right? And also kind of being the number one seed transplanter. So anyway, with the commission job, I was still working part-time, doing temp work and going to school full-time, and it was too much. And when I saw the ad, I was like, I just need to take a break from this and do this. And so thank God I did, because I met him. We've been together, 21 years?
Yeah, about 21 years then.
So we met at a sales conference in Rhode Island, and that's where we just hit it off. And we both ended up quitting at the same time and moving to San Diego. And we really just knew we wanted to just try something on our own. We're both so like-minded, and we knew that we could support each other along the way in whatever efforts we wanted to do. So we were comfortable with just giving a shot. And so we did various jobs, a lot of gig work. That's when Craigslist had just started. So I just got as many jobs for us as possible, doing gigs here and there, building up. At the time, I was only 21, so still so young. We could take the chance and just run with it. And then from there, we just built together.
Right. That's right.
Wow. Tell me a little bit more about what were the moments that made you guys walk away from that W-2 life? Like, this was it. We could not stay here anymore.
I think the number one thing for me was taking time off. And so I love to travel and get away. And so knowing that I'm limited by what my manager said I could and couldn't do with my time, even though it was a commission job, I was like, I'm still getting the work done, right? But it just, remote work wasn't as acceptable back then. So
for me, a big part of it was that, when you're working for somebody, you're being controlled. There's decisions being made that may not benefit you. So if they all of a sudden they come up with the worst structure, for your commissions, now you got to work twice as hard for the same amount of money. So that's out of your control. And that's one of the biggest factors for me.
Wow, I love that. I would say for a lot of us as entrepreneur, we can be very unemployable. Just like you said, Attila, like sometimes it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't align interests. Why would you do it? And so I love that propel you guys be like, nope, this is it. We're going to do things on our own. Do you remember if there was any like creative hustle you pull off during that transition? Because you mentioned you were doing all these gigs, all this stuff.
And everything. I mean, our apartment complex had, I don't know, 14 buildings. And we would go 3 stories. We'd go to the trash rooms at the end of the month and get the furniture that the other people would leave in there. And we'd sell it on Craigslist at the time. So we pretty much made our rent with that, selling of furniture.
We did that a lot, actually, because a lot of the furniture was left behind by wealthier college kids that moved out. You know, they're not going to bother selling that stuff. And it's good stuff like people can use and people would happily buy on Craigslist. So we pay our rent with that.
Yeah. So. And we bought bulk jewelry from Macy's aftermarket on eBay. And then we sold it at a thrift, a swap meet. And we had a table and a swap meet. So that was short-lived, but it was interesting and something to do that we're just dabbling with.
Yeah, the box was, we were paying like $1,200 for a box of jewelry. Some of it was broken, so we had to fix it. But by the end, we sold it. You know, we'd make probably, I'd say like $3,000 on the whole thing, or $4,000, more than double our money. You know, so. And
our booth spot was right next to a porn DVD guy.
Important detail, yeah.
Oh my God, I love this story so
And then a lot
much.
of marketing and promotions. That's what really started making decent money with that. And I would drag him into some of those jobs too. Yeah. But that's when he started getting back into vehicle security. And that's actually where we ended up doing our first business together. He was working for the Ravelco anti-theft device owner of California as an installer. And when we were looking into expanding and not just doing all these different gig works and side jobs all the time. And the hustle is fun for a little bit, but also gets tiring. And you want to build something that's actually real and can last.
And hone in on something. So,
right.
And that's what we did. And we ended up buying into the franchise.
And Florida territory was open. So we put our money in 50-50 and bought into that. And that was our first real business together.
Wow. First of all, kudos to you both for being so creative and like having that entrepreneur business mindset and for taking action. Can you tell me a little bit about the mindset that it must have taken for you to quit corporate jobs, go out on your own, getting so creative, doing whatever it takes?
Well, I think it helps to have 2 people, someone to back up on, right?
Love it.
That just gives you an extra leg up. Really, we're double downing. And so I feel like that's part of it. First, we both had the mindset of we want more. We're limited by what we're currently doing. And if we do another corporate job, we're going to be limited again. And it's going to be a constant trend. So right now, since we're young, is the time to give it a try. Where we have nothing to lose. We don't have really any bills. And so this is the time to put in the effort.
Absolutely. Yeah, you couldn't have said it better. With the 2 of us, we can bounce ideas off one another. Like, oh, this is great. Oh, no, like there's no way we can do that. But not that that's ever really come up. But we're able to use each other's strengths.
I love that. What I hear, and I really want the audience to take this away, is that you guys was both on the same page. You guys have the same core values. You guys have a very same appreciation for the same thing, which is your freedom. And I also love what you share about keeping your eyes on the vision, right? Like what pulled you guys toward was that vision of the future where you get to call all your shots that help you bet on yourself. So for the audience who's listening, consider that. Maybe having partners who share the same vision, same value as you do, and then think about that vision, think about that future that can pull you towards and taking that action. So I love that you share those 2 pieces. So now I really want to dive into this first business that seems to be a game changer. So you mentioned that you were at that point working for someone's out of Cali who essentially become an installer for that.
Right.
And then how do we even learn about like the franchise, about evaluating franchise, and even thinking about this business at the first purchase?
I was working for the California distributor of the Ravelco anti-theft systems on a contract basis. So again, this is not an hourly position. I'm being paid to perform something. The more efficient I can do it, the less time it takes me, the more I can make. Yeah. And then we saw that this is a great product. This product does exactly what it's supposed to do. We have no complaints, problems, callbacks. And so one of the next things that we wanted to do was to go out on our own, right? So instead of working for this guy, how do we work for ourselves in this situation? And then we started analyzing different areas for auto theft because you want to be in an area where auto theft is high so you could sell your product. So South Florida, came up on our radar, and Miami specifically has a pretty serious auto theft problem, and the territory was open. So we had some lengthy discussions about it. It was, a big financial decision. And Big move, We're both from New England, from the cold. We didn't want to be back in the cold. We liked being in a sunny area. We liked having the ability to go on to the beach anytime. So that was another factor. And we went into the deal 50-50 and made the move.
Yeah, it's not technically a franchise. I guess it's a distribution that we own of the territory. So we don't pay any franchise fees or anything. So it was very simple to analyze it. It was our initial investment. What was that back then? It was
like almost $30,000.
$30,000. Yeah. And so now we still have that. And I love that. And we'll never get rid of that. It's just an extra piece of our diversification now.
Yeah. I definitely want to point a couple of good points you guys brought up there. The first one is I love how much you guys even think about how you want to operate, right? The idea that you can make money in any market, but what is something that is good fit for you and your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So I love that even in this phase when you're probably struggling to make end meets, it was very important. And I can see that vision of like, hey, where do we want to be 10, 20 years from now, right? Is this location a good fit for how our lifestyle would be? So I love that you've taken that into account because to your point, we're all in this long term, right? Mm-hmm. And there's no point of being miserable while we're building our freedom. Right. So I love that point you brought up. The second point is always start with the market and the demand, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that you were very strategic and very smart about it of finding like, hey, where is it that I would have the buyer's demand? Just like how you guys did the free furniture to sell, right? There is a problem that you can solve and you went ahead and solve it. So kudos for you both for doing that. And that's a very important point for the audience to take away, right? If you're considering starting a business, doing something, think about where would you have the demand, right? There is a theory, there's hypothesis there. And I'm sure that you went to check the stats, check the numbers, see what the theft looked like, and that validate your theory. So I love that you share that. Tell me a little bit about, you went from being essentially employee, but, still in a corporate world and now being business owner, essentially now wearing multiple hats. Mm-hmm. What were some of the hardest things that you felt like you had to learn? And what were some of the hardest things that you felt like you had to let go so that you're not in your own way?
Yeah, I think initially the hardest thing was working together. It was not knowing each other's lanes and kind of overlapping each other or one person thinking they're doing more than the other person and egos, right? Like putting your ego aside and just knowing that you're in this together. You have the same end goal, right? Mm-hmm. But it's just knowing where your lanes are so you don't just cut each other off, right?
That's right.
And that took some time to figure out. And part of that figuring out was I actually had to pull away from the business a little bit to kind of find myself again. Because this was more his industry and he's the lead on it, right? But here I am in the back doing marketing and sales, doing the bookkeeping, taking the customer service, emails and phone calls. Like, I felt like I was doing quite a bit, but he's like the main attraction dude. Like, So there was just like things like that we had to figure out.
And I think a lot of our audience can relate. Being in a relationship together and starting to run business together require a lot of learning. Mm-hmm. I often share that my partner and I, we dance together, we're together, and we also do business together. Mm-hmm. So I can totally relate with that, like figuring out our lane and putting the ego aside in order to work together. I think that's very important and authentic things that you guys share.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you guys decide kind of your strength. What do you do? And then kind of decide which lane you would stick to.
I'm just a very mechanical type of person. I need my hands to be busy all the time.
We call it tinker.
Yeah, she calls it a tinkering. Just something, like even when I have nothing to do one day, I will find something to do just to stay busy and to satisfy that need. On the flip side, she's so analytical. She's so good in things that I'm not,
The fine details for sure. And the admin work on things, like even to this day, I'm still replying to the Ravelco leads on email. Like not a big deal. Nice. It's just something simple that I still want to be in touch and be part of it. Again, we know each other's lanes and I'm a backup dancer for that part of that business. I still deal with the bookkeeping with our bookkeepers and manage on that side. So we know where we are supposed to be now, but it took some time and some arguments.
Yeah. Like for me, let's say one of our installers can get to one of our clients. It's easier for me to go and do that install than to do any sort of bookkeeping. But I'll happily go out, entertain the client, do an amazing install for them, and we're good to go.
That's awesome. Okay. Tell me a bit more about as you guys are growing the business. At what point did you decide like, okay, now it is time for another piece in this wealth building journey?
Honestly, it was the demand had slowed down quite a bit. During the Great Recession, it was hard. So that's when he looked into installing audio video and starting that company, Miami Wired. And then I started doing more marketing and promotions back with my gig work that came up in San Diego. I did that as a manager and on a larger scale and staffing up to 200 people at a time. But it was on contract, never W-2, just contracts that would come to me, I'd accept or decline and work that through. So we kind of needed to infuse capital with all these different jobs. And then Miami Wired, he ended up building and still has to this day as well. And then we bought our first property. And that's when I started getting into real estate. When I saw the real estate process, I fell in love with it, got my real estate license. And then we had to rehab our first property. And we did that 100% down to the studs, DIY together with the help of my dad to teach us how to do things. And that was just the next project and business that we worked on together was the properties, like learning how to do all the rehab. And by that time, we were so in sync with knowing like who's doing what. And there was no arguments with that. A lot of people argue on their first rehab as a couple, but we already got through that with our first business. So
yeah, exactly.
There wasn't...
This is a walk in the park, that.
We actually didn't meet that. And then we realized there was a passion for it. And so that's when we started getting into flipping houses and moving it and scaling it into some short-term rentals and long-term rentals to multifamily. So we're diversified within real estate, but we're also diversified within our business industries. We never limit ourselves on how far we can go, what we can do. And we both support each other 100% in each endeavor that we do. So we're not scared to take leaps and chances. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. And it's okay. The ones that do work, got to push a little harder and get that one to be successful.
And the ones that don't, you learn from it and you move on.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. It's either you succeed or you learn. And so I love that you continue to pivot. And for the audience who's listening, as you're growing and as you're pivoting, right, what I really want to point out as I hear from Attila and Christina is that they continue to keep that role front and center, not going back to W-2, want to be in control of their time and their decisions. So keep that mission and that vision front and center. And then the second piece that I'm hearing from them is that they continue to leverage their strength. Right now that you guys figure out what you're good at, what you do may be different, the business may be different, the type of real estate strategy may be different, but they're always using what they're good at into whatever it is that they're doing. I want to bring it back to right now as the present. You guys now have multiple businesses. Christina, you're doing a lot of different real estate strategy. Tell me a little bit more about how are you stacking these pieces in the overall wealth building journey? Like, what are some things you guys do and think about, like, hey, this is specific for cash flow, this is for tax benefit, this is for appreciation. Tell the audience more about that.
So for cash flow, it's his two businesses that infuse capital constantly. And then our short-term rental, then also our single-family long-term rentals. I will not get rid of those either. I know a lot of people like to get rid of them and just go into full in on multifamily, but we rehab those and mitigated any issues that would come up in the future with them. We have great tenants and we're just paying down our principal and there's no point in letting those go. So, and we also did some tax strategy, like with cost seg on the single families. So there's multiple parts. Tax strategy and cash flow when it comes to the long-term rentals and short-term rental. And then multifamily is for long-term wealth building. So it takes time to build that. There is cash flow sometimes within 3 months, but most times if it's a value add, it can take a year or even 2 to really get that cash flow going where it's substantial enough. And then obviously we want that capital transaction of a refi to happen. Hopefully we'll get 100% of our money back or more, or even a little less, but we just roll that into the next property. So the multifamily is a long-term wealth building strategy.
Awesome. And then tell me a bit more about right now, as you guys own different businesses, different real estate strategy, what do you focus your time and energy on individually? And you guys both are new parents.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about like how you guys decide right now where to spend your time and what is your best effort, given the time limited and you guys have a lot of things happening.
Yeah. Well, with his business, you're working specifically only with designers now. He doesn't just work with Joe Schmo, who has a residential property and needs a TV and so on. It's like he'll only work with designers who already have large projects going on. And then Ravelco constantly working on that business and growing that. And he actually just made a product for that to make that product even better. So it's an aftermarket product for the Ravelco product. Right. And that's new. So always being innovative and trying to think of different ways to make something better or solving problems, like you said. And then for me, it's asset management of my real estate properties. So from single families all the way up to multifamily, but multifamily taking up the majority of the time because that's something you have to be on a daily pulse with.
That's awesome. Okay. I want to ask, as you guys work together, how do you handle it when maybe one of you is thriving and the other may be stuck in a rut? Any things that maybe you guys have tried to go through a lot of these up and downs together?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's like a market cycle. Like even when the market cycle goes down, the next increase is going to be even higher than the last level of resistance, right? We have our dips, but our next level of resistance is going to be way higher than the last
Even
one
more exciting,
when it was high. So these dips sometimes are so necessary to take a step back and just recenter and figure out exactly what the next step is going to be. Meanwhile, you have your backup dancer to help out and keep us afloat, keep the mindset positive while the other person's maybe not in such a good position. So it's been the beauty of the whole thing. And some people could look at that as negative, but it's actually a true positive.
I love that. What I'm hearing was like seeing this low as almost like a growth opportunity because now you're gonna come back even stronger. And that help you again, keeping your eye on the vision about where you guys can go together. And I love you mentioned about like knowing, okay, you'll be always there to support each other. And this idea that everybody has a cycle. So everybody will have their lows, will have their highs. So I really love the mindset framing that you share there. You mentioned that you guys went from like a limiting mindset to kind of the limitless one. What was some of the belief that each of you have had that maybe it held you back the most, and what helped you flip that switch?
Yeah, so coming from Hungary, like we were occupied by Russian communists until 1990 or so. I'm 10 years old there, so everybody grew up basically being limited by communist rules in Hungary. So even when we go back to Hungary, if you ask one of the locals a question, I can guarantee you the answer is going to be no. You ask the same thing again and it's still a no. And then you ask one more time and then now it's a maybe. But always the initial answer is a no. And that's the mindset I sort of grew up with. And when you move to the US, the sky just opens up. The limits just kind of disappear and it all just now falls on you. So if you're not achieving something, it's strictly related to you. It's not because of your limitations. To me, there's no better place to be in the world, that rewards you and offers you endless opportunities.
I love that mindset shift. You have limitless opportunities, and no's does not mean no's forever. No's just probably mean not yet. We're going to shift to our mystery question. And this is a question that got left behind by our previous guests. But your question is, what is your favorite country to visit and why?
Thailand.
Yeah, we've been to Thailand twice.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just such a beautiful country and the people are so nice. And we had fun just exploring by driving around for days with no agenda, no itinerary. And it was one of those places you can do that and feel completely safe. And everyone's just so welcoming.
It's a pure disconnect.
Yeah.
The food's incredible. The people are so happy and welcoming. It's just the best, and everywhere you look, next thing you know, you're just driving down the road and there's a amazing Buddhist temple off in the distance that you just never ever see that kind of stuff. It's just incredible. And
then Hungary, of course, like we're actually bringing our daughter there for the first time in October.
Oh,
we'll see how a 6-month-old does in an international long haul flight, but we don't want to stop. Like that was the thing. We don't want to change our lifestyle, but we might. We'll see how that goes.
We might have to adjust a little.
I actually became a Hungarian citizen a couple of years ago.
I didn't know that. That's so cool.
With the test, you have to learn just enough basic Hungarian to pass. I failed the first time and I went again and I passed the second time. So
see, it's always no.
Yes. This is a true rites of passage.
Yes.
Yeah. For you to get, you got to hear no's a few times.
Yeah. Right. So this is the beginning of many trips to Hungary for Lily. And we're excited for her to speak the language fluently, unlike her mother. But I'll get better with time as well once she starts learning as well. But that's something we really want to implement into her life.
That is so cool. How do you start learning Hungarian?
Tutors. There's a bunch of different tutor apps, but I had a tutor 3 to 4 days a week for an hour at a time. And it was just the time I had to set aside to learn.
That's awesome. I have found it's pretty challenging to learn a new language as an adult.
Yeah.
I mean, English is my second language, but I started learning that a while ago. My boyfriend is Puerto Rican.
Okay.
And so I've been trying to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
I also dance salsa and bachata. So it's like, I would love to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
But it has been a bit challenging. But to your point, I have not put much effort into it. So maybe it's not challenging. It's probably just me. I have not put the time into it. So that's probably not an excuse. But I really love that you're bringing Lily back. Does she have a Hungarian passport? Will she have a Hungarian
She will, and she
passport?
just got her US one today.
Oh my God, that's so
and
exciting.
global entry too, because infants need global entry as well. Ours, we can't use ours. I'm like, good thing I figured that out because that would have pissed me off.
Look at you, being a world traveler at 6 months.
We are.
Yeah.
I love that. How has both business and new parenting been? Like, how are you guys navigating this new phase?
That's another new challenge that we've navigated together. Like
Yeah.
limitations are now there. Calendar coordination, which we never had to sync up before. We have to sync up all these different things that we never had to do. So we're just a new way of living, and we're just adjusting and
Yeah.
we're learning as we go.
Yep, syncing is the right way to say
Syncing.
it, like you said, and then being intentional with your time.
Right.
More so than ever before. You think you're patient, but until a kid comes along.
Yeah. I never used to implement time blocking, and now I am. So things are just a new way.
I love it. Yeah, it's just a new journey that you guys figuring out together
Exactly.
as each other backup dancers.
Right. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So tell the audience how they can keep in touch with you, find out more, and follow your journey.
Yeah. So I'm ChristinaKovacs.com and Instagram, same thing, Christina Kovacs. He doesn't really do much at social.
No, I think that's our
I'm just
prime.
kind of hanging out.
So go to Christina if you need to get in touch with Attila.
Yeah, would love to connect and have a 30-minute call to get to know you and never know where
Great.
things lead, right?
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today, spending the time with us and sharing your amazing journey with building businesses, real estate empire, and just navigating life together as a couple and business owners. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to having you back.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.